a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind.
It was basically a cube with inside of a sphere where the points of the cube were touching the outside of the sphere.
Roger. There's troubleshooting
So this isn't anything that just is limited to the United States. It's a worldwide phenomenon.
That UFO podcast is powered by Zencastr. Zencastr is one of the world's leading platforms for recording and hosting podcasts. Zencastr is a modern web-based solution for high-quality audio and video podcast production. With a full suite of professional tools, Zencastr allows podcasters to quickly and seamlessly record their guests remotely and produce their podcasts in studio quality. Check out the links in the show description to find out more. Breakable. Hi everyone and welcome back to That UFO podcast. My name is Andy and it's a breaking news podcast for the 12th of September, but we're recording this on the 13th. Dan's joining me for this one as usual. Dan, how are we?
I'm great, thank you.
Awesome. Now listen, I've got questions, Dan, as we were just discussing previously, okay? We had some breaking news yesterday. It was a busy day for me and we were recording listener call-in last night. Stuff was happening as we were doing the call-in stuff as well. Now, breaking news, it seemed at first Max Moszcowicz, I think I'm getting his name right now, again, handsome dude, he was in San Marino. He had travelled from Holland. He stays in Holland, doesn't he? Yeah.
Yeah.
He had travelled from Holland down to San Marino, which is an area of Italy. It's a country
drove, which is commendable.
Yeah.
Like, nice road trip.
I would as well, no doubt, beautiful scenery. But Max travelled down to meet up with Lue Elizondo and also attend the conference from a media point of view as well, which is awesome. And Max put on there was some breaking news, and I was messaging yourself as well to find out what is this breaking news, what's been said, what's happened. But it turns out, if I'm correct, Dan, the breaking news is actually something that happened stateside while Lue was over in San Marino. Yeah,
yeah, that's correct. And what Max and Lue brought to the table was to go through the bill that had been introduced stateside and kind of emphasize a few points.
Yeah. So, what is the bill itself, Dan? You've looked into this. You've got the numbers and stuff there. You love reading a bill, don't you, these days? And tell us a little bit about it.
Sure. So I'll start kind of at the beginning. So last year we had a UAP bill go through Congress. All our hopes and dreams were pinned on that. That was called S.2610 Later on, it became S.4049. And the reason I say that is because it's worth remembering that as these things go on, these numbers are going to change and these bills are going to change, even more so this year. So the same group as who did the bill last year, which was the language that Chris Mellon helped with. That was the Intelligence Authorization Act for fiscal year. That would have been 2021, and that was Senator Mark Warner, Rubio, Mellon, you know that group. So those guys did a great job last year. It got into the COVID bill, as the media likes to call it. I like to call it the UAP bill. And now this year, not only did those same people introduce another bill called S.2610, but another group has introduced a bill as well. And that's HR.4350, and that's the National Defense Authorization Act. And for this, we have to thank Ruben Gallego. I might be saying that wrong, so I apologize if so. But he basically issued an amendment to that bill that ensured a few different things. One of the things was that basically upon the establishment of, or it called for the establishment of an official body. So a proper body, kind of like Space Force, NASA, all those kind of different groups like that, but just to look at UAP. But as a result of that, the UAP task force would go away because it's filling their remit and it would be properly funded.
And let me come in there. That's fine because, like we said, the UAP task force was never a permanent body in the first place. It was set up for a purpose. It's served its purpose pretty much, and this would only be a good thing because this would be what comes from the task force. This would be the evolution of the task force into that permanent body, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris Mellon had a cool proposed name for this body. The Office of the Office of Strategic Anomaly Resolution, which I think has a nice ring to it. It sounds very official.
It doesn't roll off the tongue, but yeah,
it doesn't. It would be an acronym, right?
Yeah,
it would be the S.
I was going to say, are you going to try live read what the acronym would be for that?
I'm not going to attempt that.
Dan's designing a coaster as we speak. He's not.
So Rubin actually issued a statement, and he said it's in the national security interest of the United States to know what is flying in our skies, whether emerging tech from strategic competitors and adversaries or aerial phenomena from unknown origins. Our military must have a full intelligence picture and the tools to respond quickly to these potential threats. My amendment creates a permanent office at DoD to comprehensively evaluate these UAPs, and I'm proud to announce its inclusion in the House version of the NDAA. So Rubin's people will probably not recognize his name, at least outside of America, because he's new to this kind of subject, but it's great to see someone come out swinging like that, taking this subject seriously. And the key points highlighted by Lue are worth kind of touching on, because they bring up a few things that weren't in the other bill, and they're very specific questions that allude to some, potentially interesting answers down the road. So first of all, I'll just say that in San Marino, as part of these conversations between Max and Lue, they spoke about Lue's presentations. Lue presented an AI filter software that was able to identify everything in a video, whether it's plane, a balloon, so on and so forth, and apply kind of filters to it and separate the true unknowns from the dodgy stuff that we all know and hate. But the other things is, one, the sixth observable biological effects. We know that it's a thing, but it hasn't really been talked about yet. And finally, this bill does that. It's considering the human factor, which is fantastic, because we've heard a few stories of people being affected by being close to these craft, but surely there are more out there, right? And it'll be affecting people in ways that we don't yet understand. So it's great, and I'm sure Gary Nolan's kind of celebrating that his work is being legitimized, and he might be able to, be fully open with what his aims are. Not that he's shy about it anyway, but when talking to his colleagues, the stigma will go away now, The other thing was materials. So there was a line in the bill that spoke about materials, and Lue Elizondo actually issued a quote for this, so I'll just read his.
Yeah, please.
When Lue was asked about Roswell, Lue said that this bill, the NDAA, specifically states that the Department of Defense and the intelligence community must report to Congress any material collected by the United States or its allies. Big deal. And that's a quote from Lue, even the big deal bit. We know these events all over the world have happened. We know they've happened between Five Eyes partners, and now they're demanding that information, which is fantastic.
Right, okay, I've got a few questions, Dan, as people. That was a lovely summary so far anyway, so I appreciate that. Dan's taking a breath. The first one is just to make clear that these bills have not passed yet. So what is more than likely that these are not the final bills that will get the job done? There are more than likely going to still be amendments made to these. So those bill numbers will more than likely change, and what comes of that is a final bill, which as part of it, we will hopefully get this permanent office. Is that about right, Dan? Yeah, absolutely. They're going to be hammering out the details. I said during the listener calling yesterday, which people, I'm not sure when this will come out, so it might be before then, but the last year we had one bill, this year we have two. It's kind of a pincer movement happening now. Last year we were wondering whether it was going to happen at all. This year we're just hammering out the details. This is happening. It's just a case of what we're going to call it, how often the reports are going to come. The one bill asks for every 90 days. The other one kind of says for every year. People will argue over that, just like we all will on Twitter, and that's their jobs to do it, and they'll hammer it out. And who knows? We might get every 6 months. Now, Dan, you might not be able to answer this question. You can answer quite a lot of them for me. The materials part of this had a lot of people talking online, and I was taking some time to look over it last night, and a few different people got in touch with me, just listeners asking about, does this mean we're going to get the Roswell craft wheeled out now? We're now talking about something that happened, 75, 80 years ago. I would imagine any, if not all of that material, which I'm just going to go with the presumption, and my belief is that it does exist. I've said that before, isn't with the government anymore and would be with private contractors, potentially having changed hands multiple times over the years. We don't know that. How exactly would any official government organisation get a hold of that, or could they, as part of this bill, when it's probably no longer in the hands of the government?
Well, what should happen is that to some extent there will be a paper trail. And that paper trail will stop when it enters private industry. So we're basically kind of saying, hey, whatever you have, even if it's a craft, fantastic. If it's not, we just want to know. And we can follow those breadcrumbs then to the programs that we suspect exist and probably do, to people like, for example, Lockheed. And Lockheed it escapes me now. They were bought out by another company that has a long history, and there's a few aerospace companies that did that as well.
That's my point, Dan. Is that not a really easy way to hide this stuff, though, and for
Absolutely.
it not to come out? Because whether it's Bigelow or Lockheed or the people who owned it before, or I don't even know how this stuff works properly. Researchers far better than me will, but no doubt within Lockheed there's divisions and divisions and divisions, and people within Lockheed will be privy to certain information that others aren't, because they do a lot of different things within their remit. I just don't see how, if this stuff has been handed over through generations to different people and facilities, how it would come out, because surely when that paper trail stops, it stops, and these companies, I'm sure, won't want to hand over anything they've got either.
Well, this is part of removing the stigma, I think, that people, once this is in the bill, people who are involved with this are kind of being given essentially a thumbs up to come forward and start talking about what they saw. So we might have, we always look at things like breadcrumbs. So there's not going to be a guy that says, yes, I worked on a UFO craft. But someone might come forward and say, hey, after that paper trail stopped, the year following that, someone brought to me in a case this light, feathery, crazy strong material that we tested. And that was when I worked at Lockheed and I didn't know what it was. And, we can kind of start putting those puzzle pieces together. But you're also absolutely correct that we just might never know.
Not for that particular piece anyway. And I just don't want to sound like I'm dampening this down, but the point is that people, again, should not expect this to be the wheeling out of any particular crash or materials. It's for me, potentially something that will help going forward. But again, don't expect materials to be wheeled out, left, right and centre, because I don't think that's necessarily what's going to happen. But like Dan said, makes a really good point. What may come of it is we get another Bob Lazar, in the sense that people who may or may not have worked on different craft in the past may come forward, and that would be pretty cool as well, especially if we had employees maybe of the last 20 or 30 years who are still working, still around, still active, still involved, come forward with stories or backing up other people's stories potentially as well. I have a concern though, Dan, and I shared this with you before. Are we going to lose people like Lue Elizondo to this new governmental faction? Because if I'm in the government and I'm looking at, okay, we've got a new group starting up, as crazy as it sounds, we are going to be officially investigating, looking at and discussing UFOs, UAPs. This guy, Lue Elizondo, used to work with us. He has been doing X, Y, and Z and has got all this going. Let's get this guy back on side and let's get him back in the team, because there's no one better to run this. Now, that would be great for Lue, I'm sure, and great for the subject in one way. But I think there's a lot of us who would be disappointed, because no doubt with that and that new responsibility would come a less able and open Lue Elizondo given new responsibilities. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. It would be a less public-facing role, right? Like if you had those departments set up, if there was a public-facing part of it, there would be a team of people there. It kind of doing what we think Susan Govt does now, but not so narrow-sighted, I guess. Lue always says that his commitment and his oath is to the American people. So I could see him going back, going somewhere where he would be most effective. But for me, where he would be most effective would be in an international body not associated with governments. Not necessarily speaking for the US government, but speaking as someone that's very experienced, and we don't really know the extent of Lue's experience yet. We've had hints, and it seems to be huge. It seems that he's had his own experiences. It seems that he's seen a lot more than he tells us. Even the explosive things that he suggested, that he's probably seen stuff 10 times better than that. So wherever he lands, I'm happy, but I hope it's in a place where he still gets to talk to us, because I think he's really great and effective at doing that.
Sure. Listen, things are still ongoing out in San Marino. I would encourage people to keep an eye on Max Moszcowicz's channel. He's very active on social media. He will be tweeting links. He's out there just now with Lue and others, and he is one of us. He is one of the kind of, I don't know, do we call ourselves media now? But
well, I said to him when I went on Max's channel like a few weeks back, and I said to him the thing of, none of us paid to do this. It's all our passion and so on and so forth. And he reminded me, he was like, no, dude, I'm actually a journalist. This is my job. This is what I'm paid to do. And I was like, oh God, yeah, that's true. You're not quite in the same position as myself and you, Andy.
He is very much officially media, filmmaker, journalist. So it's great he's done that. And us on the grassroots UFO media, let's call ourselves that maybe, are looking to people like Max, who have managed to get himself out there, and hopefully that'll be us next year. If this is going to be a regular thing that we can actually get over, it'll be a flight and a train ride for us. I've been looking at it today, to be honest, but that's more than doable if this kind of stuff is going to help get kind of the news out quicker for people as well. But keep an eye on Max's channel, keep an eye on social media. If there's anything more worthy reporting from a news point of view, we'll do another breaking news podcast, of course. But yeah, for now, that's what's been happening.
Lue did have someone with him as well, Lance Munguia, who filmed Third Eye Spies and put that film together. So I would figure that any news on Lue's part from what's gone down in San Marino, with some meetings and lectures and things like that, I would imagine, Lance would be responsible for putting that together in whatever form, and Lue
potentially being recorded.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Fingers crossed.
And just before we go off, because this has been a nice short one for people, just to update them on what's been happening and our thoughts and get some of the basics hashed out, because these are questions I've had for Dan as well and following this, so it's been good to have. It
gets a lot, right? Like all these different bill numbers, and when you don't live in America and you don't really know how this stuff works, it's I am happy to admit that I'm only just starting to feel like, okay, I kind of understand what's happening.
Yeah, and it's nice to clear it up, because you see it being reported online and people make mistakes and they get bill numbers wrong, or they confuse one bill with another, and that's really easy to do. And it's only when I sit down and get a chance to look at it myself and start asking questions that I can get corrected. And I think, do you know what, other people are going to have that same thing, so it's good to kind of hash it out and clear it up as well, because for me it's not disclosure. This isn't a huge step, but it's a good one. It's a positive one. It's a step forward. I think big developments could come from this down the line. Lue seems to be hinting at that as well, and it's exciting, and it's good to see things are kind of rolling on. Let's remember, less than 3 months ago we had the UAP task force report published. We're less than 3 months on, and here's another piece of progress. Never mind what's happened in the meantime, where there has been drips and drabs, but this is where we're at now, where in less than 3 months we've had another leap forward. So
Lue said something pertinent to what you're saying. Someone asked him about, were you disappointed with the UAPTF report? And he said that report wasn't designed to say something, it was designed to do something. So what we're seeing now is the result of what that report was designed to do, i.e. smash through the stigma, start getting the right people in positions where they can talk about this stuff openly. And like you said, within 3 months of that happening, we're already seeing these 2 new bills in Congress. Like, everyone smell the roses,
Absolutely. And that gives me a chance just to confirm, for people who haven't seen it on Twitter, Ross Coulthart will be on the podcast. I'm recording that 1 week today, which will be Monday the 20th of September. I've got a ton of questions already in for Ross from last month. please feel free to send over more to UFOUAPAM@gmail.com. And I've got a tweet up just now that if you like and retweet, you'll be put in a draw to win a copy of the audiobook of Ross's In Plain Sight. So that'll be running for the next day or so. So please head over to Twitter and check out, just like and retweet for a chance to win a copy of the book. But Dan and I have more listener calls to go and record. The listener call-in show will be out later in the week and into next week as well. It's going to be in a couple of parts. We have a lot of calls to get through with people, so looking forward to that one, Dan. Dan, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
And see you again soon. That is all for this week's show. Thank you very much for listening. Please remember to leave the podcast a review on your chosen platform. You can like, retweet and subscribe. That would all be very much appreciated. The shows are being uploaded onto YouTube as we speak more and more. You can sign up at patreon.com/That UFO podcast to access the shows ad-free as well. Please get in touch on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, That UFO podcast. Of course, on Twitter, it's at UFOUAPAM. And again, folks, as always, keep looking up. You never know what you might see.
It wasn't a tic-tac and not quite a saucer, more like a hubcap designed by Chaucer, a little Baroque and quite steampunk, like Alice was playing bass for the Parliament of Folk. The little fucker hovered right outside of my window, and when I shoved out the screen, he made it an issue. I don't think he expected me to see his ass, but I'd had some champagne and smoked a little grass. Meditative game of state full on meta. You can't imagine how it could have been any better. I got to the top of the stairs and there he was. Like, you awake? I was about to abduct you, cuz. I jumped back and nearly kissed myself, and I climbed out the window after the elf, and I woke up in my bed and there was something on my head and everything was weird and everything was red. And I called out to my boys. They thought this was noise. They thought it was a dream. They thought it was my toys. They thought it was my problems, and they think I should seek therapy, and I don't know what to do because it doesn't really scare me. If you really want to know who I think I be, I think it's you and me and us and we and him and her and that and she and that thing over there and what's that, Jake? If we're being serious, open your mind, consider your heart, consider time, consider your space, consider your lies, consider your life, consider your eyes. It wasn't a tic-tac and not quite a saucer. It wasn't a tic-tac and not quite a saucer.